Now China is not really the world's second largest economy, but I think most dramatic of all is the fact that by World Bank standards, in China will become a high income economy in 2 to 3 years' time. I know domestically China's already achieved moderate prosperity, but I'll just use international standards. I mean, there has never been anything like this in the whole history of the world. The population of existing high-income economies is 16% of the world's population, and China is 18% of the world's population by itself. So there are more people who will achieve high-income status in China than all the other countries in the world that have historically been achieved. This is astonishing. So, and it's basically fundamentally because the socialism, the socialist system, in particular, on an economic point of view, socialism with Chinese with characteristics works. That is, it's got a combination of a market economy, a large state sector. It uses both the visible hand and the invisible hand, and it has a specifically socialist orientation, which means it's aiming for the whole of the population to benefit. Therefore, it doesn't have the type of political disorder that you have in the United States. In the United States, you have economic growth, but the majority of the population doesn't benefit. And then you get events like occurred just after the Trump lost the election, you know, with riots and attacks on the Congress and things like that. Well, because China's been able to outcompete other countries peacefully. I mean, the rules, China didn't set up the rules of the WTO. Actually, these rules were designed to basically be advantageous to the United States. So China, if it drawn up the rules of the WTO, could probably have drawn up some rules that were more favorable to China, but it joined on the conditions that were set by the United States. But within that framework, it has been able to more successfully outcompete other countries. Globalization, it's open to any country to benefit from it. And incidentally, China is not the only country which has benefited from globalization. South Korea has benefited a great deal from globalization. Singapore has. I mean, it's true that China has benefited more than any other country, but that's it was because the other countries didn't follow policies that were logical. This is the fundamental problem which is caught by the United States. Now it wants to try to change the rules because it's been outcompeted in the rules which it originally set up. But you know, that's not how the way the world works. Most of the world doesn't want to change the rules. Well, I wouldn't quite agree with the premise of that question. I think that the degree to which globalization is decoupling is greatly exaggerated. So it may be the case that the US government wanted, that Trump certainly did, to decouple China and the United States, but it hasn't been at all successful. And the reason is because the economies are complementary. That is, we know that the United States has the most advanced technology in the world, so the United States has a great deal to sell in very, very high level technological goods. In fact, if it didn't have silly sanctions against China, it could sell more to China, but that's a problem for the United States. Whereas in what we might call now, if it's not slightly a paradoxical term, we might call medium high technology or low high technology, which I mean technologically advanced by normal standards, but not absolutely the top. China is dominant in the world. It no longer produces only low quality, low technology goods, although it's absolutely dominant in those sectors. It hasn't lost its position there, but it's moved into higher technology sectors. And while it's true, after the international financial crisis and during the COVID pandemic, the percentage of trade in countries' GDPs, particularly in the West, went down a little bit, but it went down to nothing like, compared to World War II or period between that, it's incredibly high. Due to COVID and other things, life expectancy in China is higher than it is in the United States. So if you look at the real conditions which affect real people, the conditions of the human rights and the political system which produces this is better in China. This is a very serious matter. If you're dealing with a very serious matter, there's no point in being either optimistic or being realistic, because reality will hit you over the head. The only thing which you can do is be absolutely realistic. Yeah, I know. I've written articles for Chinese media which said, China has made the last 20 years, for example, the biggest contribution to human rights in the world. The crucial thing here is the development of human beings. The biggest development step forward in human rights of coming in developing countries, in particular in China. Like I often say, the single biggest contribution that has been made to human rights in the whole world is China's elimination of absolute poverty. It's actually China's done a lot of other things, environmental things, the average standard of living, etc. Now, fortunately, some other developing countries, they haven't achieved the same as China, but they've had very good results.